Hello, guys and girls. Welcome to the Malina Radio Podcast here. Welcome back on our podcast again. This is episode whatever it is. This is episode Matrix or whatever number. I don't know what number we're on because honestly, the society is just collapsing like the Matrix. But today's topic we'll talk about is money. And right now it's witching. Right now I'm recording this during witching hour, so some supernatural activity coming in, and we'll get some crazy ideas here. So I got up around 3 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. Actually, I just didn't sleep at all. So today I make a video about money because why not? Because literally my life has been evolved about money. So let's talk about this. Now, obviously, my life has been very interesting. I went to supernatural things. I went to spiritual things, and I went through many things in my life. And I also got stabbed. I went through a lot. Now, for me, I think when I learned more about money, or besides, okay, obviously 2019, I don't count that, but I didn't really knew about money, of how it really works, or I'll say around 2022, because I was forced to, because during that time, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, let me backstory. So back then, I didn't really Malina is obviously not really a business, but it's like a project. But what happened was back in 2022, I dropped out of college, right? I dropped out of school. Actually, I think it was the best decision, to be honest, because I realized now it's inflated. But I don't know, maybe it's the worst decision, I don't know. But my mom sees me as a failure. Honestly, I'm networking with Google, which has been phenomenal. So it's been a phenomenal trip working with Google and because I have a website using Google Cloud, which has been phenomenal, which we'll get into the podcast today, why you should invest in yourself. But yeah, I was in school, and the problem was, it took time. It took about 4 years to probably learn all that stuff I could learn in the day. And the fun fact, I took down to like learn quickly, because I think ChatGPT came out at the end of 2002. So if I was still in school, I probably, could either if I wouldn't use it, would have been screwed, or B, I would have been screwed. So because then, I won't be able to generate it, which I learned quick, so you can catch up easily. So today's topic I'm talking about is money. And it's gonna be a long video, gonna be a long podcast. So sit down if you have some popcorn. Sit down, get some popcorn, get some pop rocks or whatever you need. I'm not doing video cam because my camera, I gotta fix the camera on the iPod Touch because I don't know what the hell is going on with it. Because for some reason the camera keeps flipping to the side and I gotta fix it. So I have to fix some stuff here. So hopefully I can fix the camera soon. But next time I fix the camera. So this is gonna be on Spotify, YouTube, everywhere, Odyssey. So let's get to the podcast. So today's podcast I'm going to talk about is money particularly. Now, obviously, and people are like, oh, we're talking about inflation. Now, today I'm going to talk about is inflation. We're going to just talk about money in general. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is inflation. Now, why inflation is happening? What is exactly inflation? Now, people think of inflation like, oh my God, it's like, it's like people think inflation is like, okay, the prices go up. And the prices goes up of goods, and that's it. No, right? What you really want to think of inflation is basically your money basically becoming like toilet paper. Basically, what inflation does to money is it basically reduces the value of it. Okay, so I'll give you an example of this. So, for instance, if I make, all right, for instance, with a person, right? Okay, I'm joking. Okay, that's not bad. That's a bad example. A perfect example is a computer, right? Now, computers, I'm just gonna sound. I'm just gonna give you an analogy. Like, okay, if I made one computer, right, the demand of if there's one, if it was the rare computer, if it was, like, for instance, the Apple II, right, the Apple II is worth more money. You know why? Because there's a limited amount of it, right? Now, what happens when you make so much of it? What happens is when you make so much of it, the value decreases. Like, for instance, the Atari Swings. Okay, for instance, the Nintendo Switch. There's more Nintendo Switches out there, so it's the value is okay, it's stable, right? But let's say I want to buy let's say I want to get let's say I want to get Mally in the West, which that's perfect. Actually, that's not fine. That's actually Mally not too. But let's say I want to get something rare. That's something. Let's say I want to get Mally in the West. See, Windows is more popular. Obviously, Windows is more popular, so it's it's not rare. It is expensive, but it's affordable. Let's say I want to buy Mally in the West, a rare system that nobody uses. Now, obviously, right now it's rare, but when the demand goes up. Then once the demand goes up, also when it comes to product demand, you have demand. When demand goes up, then the price goes up too. But also when the demand is really low, when the demand is very low, it goes down. Now, there's some cases good, like for instance, like when you when you provide goods and services, that could be a good thing, and when the price goes down, that's pretty good. But that refers to like when you provide value, like service, when you sell things, like that's normal. Like when you sell things, that makes sense. Like for instance, like if the prices go down for goods and services, then it's good for the economy and stuff like that. But what you really want to watch out for is inflation, because inflation, that's worse. Because with inflation, the problem with inflation is if the value of money goes down, then the prices go up. Doesn't matter, because when you have so much dollars that's printed, the value just becomes worthless. Really worthless. That it doesn't have a value because basically, see, well, at least with goods and services, they have value. So like when you put it with the money, obviously, if let's say for instance, if I want to buy a Rosalina plushie, Rosalina costs let's say it costs $77 or $700. Let's say it costs $77, right? The version plushie costs $77. Okay. Well, Rosalina is a popular character, right? Very popular character, so it's in high demand. The property of Nintendo is in high demand. However, if I want to sell my Alien West, which is in low demand, it's right now $50. Right now, check my Alien West below. It's in low demand. It's not inflated, but it's very low demand. So that means the price is gonna be low. Now, when it comes to cash, this money, this physical currency, that's different. Inflation works differently. Inflation, for instance, is the money when you make a lot of money. When you print, here's again, print. When you print a lot of the money, that money is worth less and less and less more often. And what happens is there's some countries where like when inflation got so bad that to buy literally a loaf of bread, you had to basically bring wheelbarrows of things, and that's really bad. So that's really bad. So how do you stop inflation? What you want to do is, first of all, stop printing money. Obviously, that's that thing. But really, what you want to do is you want to invest in assets. Now, most people, when they talk about money, are like, oh, okay, obviously, like I said, obviously you need jobs to keep the economy. Jobs are really worth it. But what we really need nowadays is we need more business people. We need more companies. We need more business to basically stabilize the economy. Because when you have, so here's the thing. Now, obviously, let's talk about the baby boomers. This will be another thing. The baby boomers back then, it was a different economy. The economy was really good. The baby boomers mentality was like, okay, because obviously nowadays most of the people are boomers. But the baby boomers mentality was like, okay, let's go to work, right? Let's go to work for I think 50 years, and we don't have to worry about layoffs. Because back then, see, you gotta realize that back then the economy is way better. It was the baby boomers, it was the golden age of like the kind of economy. I argue about that. Now, the baby boomers, the way to describe the baby boomers, they're very traditional, right? They're very traditional. See, Gen Zs are different. Like, Gen Zs are political, yes, but also they're very different. That's why I said I made a video, the podcast over there, why Gen Z is probably the smartest generation. Not because like of their intellect, just because like the fact they're like, oh, I'm out of here, but not because of that. They're just very intelligent in different ways. The boomers, they're very See, Gen Zs are more like they're very different. Gen Z boomers are more like traditional, and then you have millenniums, which is like they're like just millenniums. They're very like in between. They're more like interested. They're very in between. Millennials are probably like 30 years old. They're really like the geekies, I'll say, but are more like the in between. But Gen Z is like more unpredictable, also, but very. And then you have boomers, which is more predictability. They're very traditional. Like, for instance, my mom is a boomer. I could say she's a boomer. And the thing about boomers, you gotta understand, they're very traditional. Like, if I told them my mom, like, oh, the government buys on you, they would see me as crazy. But, come on. Like, we're in, like, 2024, you have recording, you have, in New York City, you have cameras everywhere, but also you have the fact that you also have, like, you also have analytics. Right now, I have an app on my phone right now. I'm not even joking. I have an app on my phone that can easily track phone calls. I could do that. I literally do that, man. I could do that. My website literally have tracking cookies. I could do that. My mom, does she know about it? No, she don't know about that. And this is why I think Gen Z is a smart generation, because Gen Zs, we know how the internet works. We're like the pioneers of like the internet. We know how the internet works. Okay. Now, there's some exceptions. Like obviously for instance, CEO of Google, for them, which is phenomenal. He's older. I think he's around his 50s. Which is interesting. Or most CEOs in literally in tech companies, or is he older because So like I said, age doesn't matter. What matters is the intellect of the brain. Obviously, and like I said, I'm not the smartest guy in the universe, but I know I just have basic common sense. I think that's what matters. I think society just needs common sense. Now, like I said earlier, I want a society of thinkers, not slaves. You know what I'm saying? That's what I believe. But going back to the money, by the way. Now, when inflation goes high, it's a disaster in that sense. It's really bad. So you want to like lower the inflation. So that's why it's bad to have inflation. That's why inflation when it's high, it affects everything. But yeah, that's the problem. And this is why I think money is important to talk about in schools, because I remember when I was in 2022, man. especially in 2022, I lost a lot of money, and I was very responsible with it, and that was a big mistake, and I had to get back on track. And I know that money, like I said, it's a knife. It could use for two. It could use for good, and it could use for bad. And I learned that very online, kids. Don't be in debt. Do not do what I did, and do not blow any money on just junk. So how do we solve this? How do you solve this? And what I believe is you got to invest in money in assets. Gold. I think gold is an asset too. But what you really want to do is invest in yourself. Now, most people when they're like, okay, when most people are like, oh my god, why I'm not, most people when they go to job, I could make a video about HR, how like, they just talk about like, okay, when they hire like people like, okay, so for instance, with HR, they just outsource the workers to hire someone, but that's a different podcast. That's just the video. That's something totally different. I'm just talking particularly about like the value system right there. Now, obviously, the currency is a U.S. dollar, and then in Japan it's like I think Japanese yen. So it's very interesting. There's different currencies there. So now, obviously, to create a currency, you have to provide basically every currency. If you look at it, it has a value system now. Now, obviously, if you print too much of it, it could lead to it worth nothing. So how do you solve this issue? Now, one way to solve inflation, obviously invest in asset or invest. Investing is a very common method. But the problem with that is like if you invest in stock exchange, it's like a second predictability. So you really want to do is invest in gold, because back then the U.S. dollar was actually in gold. Back then U.S. dollar was backed by gold. Now the U.S. dollar is backed by nothing really. Okay, it's backed by the economy to see if it's doing good, which is it's okay, but once inflation goes out of hand, that's really bad. And also, when you see the tech layoffs, see back then, like I said, going back to the boomers. Back then, the boomers are okay, but boomers they didn't have to worry about layoffs as much as they used to as Gen Z, because back in the day, layoffs just didn't happen. Like you can get a job, like even then, like even if you go to college, you get a job, you can easily make a lot of money. It was just worth it. Nowadays, you go to college, you either have to pay $1,000. I think I'll say $100,000 in debt, and even if you get the job, let's say if you get the job, you still be in debt because of it, and it's a disaster. So that's one way. And then if you get lucky, you just have to get lucky. It's like playing life is like playing like Russian roulette now. If you get lucky in like a creative field, then you could also then you have to pray to God that you don't get laid off, because nowadays, even if you want to get a job, let's say you want to get a dream job, then the problem is now they will lay off you. They would because the company, like, let's be honest, because companies are not your friends. Obviously, like, don't trust me. Don't trust Google. Don't even trust me. I'm just playing both sides. I'm telling the truth, man. But the thing is, you gotta understand about like, and when the company, you gotta put the eyes of a corporation. You got to put the eyes of corporation how they speak. Corporation, but this is how they speak. They're like, oh, we got to make profits. We need quotas hit. They always have to hit their next quota. They're very not I don't want to say emotional, but they're very business oriented. And then and then there's different types of business too where they run. So which I'm going to talk about next time, the next podcast. But there's two types of business people. You have nowadays you have the software engineers, and then you have like the and then you have the business people right there. There are two business people. You have the software. You have not software engineers. You have the engineers nowadays. Which now you have. If you know what I notice now is now businesses are switching to like engineers and thinkers, which I'm glad for that's the case, because as you can see, it just doesn't work when you have when you have people that don't know the product. That's a problem. Like for instance, let's go back to Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer, back then, he wasn't Microsoft was successful, but they didn't back then. You didn't have Azure or the cloud infrastructure back then. They didn't have a cloud infrastructure then. Now, really, okay, I'm gonna just make it simple in general for you kiddos. Now, there's there's two type of competitive methods right here. You have the blue ocean strategy, which basically you create an uncongested market, and you just create products that's very unique and it has to be low cost too. And you have red ocean, which basically you compete in an existing market, and you have to compete against the competition. Now, obviously, examples of blue ocean strategies here is Spotify. Now, if you look at, but what I noticed about blue ocean too is that it kind of leads to red ocean in some cases too. Like for instance, Spotify. Back then, you just had Spotify. Nowadays, you have Apple Music, Spotify, and Pandora, and then you have all these other stuff. So it's kind of like a red ocean. But I still use Spotify because Spotify, it's just doing it's still good. But now it's red ocean because there's literally I think 5,000 streaming services. So, but Spotify was the first one. So there are the original blue ocean. Perfect examples like the game consoles market. So Nintendo back then, I think Nintendo was always blue ocean. Obviously there was red ocean too, but there was always blue ocean. For instance, Nintendo, actually, they were always, okay, back then they were red ocean, technically, because the game console, but now they blue. I think when they became blue ocean, technically was 2006, but before before consoles, you have Atari 2600, but that was basically back then it was red ocean, but then that was the crash. But the problem back then is the reason why the crash even happened is, like I said, it was just so inflation. It's just go back to money too, because when you have a market that's so congested, the two things could happen. It could lead to a crash, or B, the product becomes worthless. There was a time where video games actually was worth nothing. If you look at history about what happens when the market congested, the value just becomes decreased over time. Like for instance, video games. The reason why the video game crash basically really happened in the States. Everywhere else is fine. Like Japan was fine because you have Nintendo, and it's just fine. But it's just really the crash really happened in the States. And the reason why a crash happened is because there was just so much developers making games for the console. There was so many consoles out there, and it was just inflation. It was very bad. That's a problem. I think this is similar happening with money too. When you make too much money, when you print so much money, it just becomes valueless. But obviously, luckily, it's not as bad as like other countries where they have to bring a wheelbarrow, to do that, to buy a piece of bread, But this is also why too, like obviously, you have the kind of competition too. But it's like I said earlier, life is about balance. You know what I'm saying? I'm playing both sides. Life is about balance. You know what I'm saying? Life is about balance. If you look carefully around, Google Play Store, this is why I like Android. The reason I like Android too is it's balance. You could download APK from a different app store. But also, Google Play Store promotes competition, so it's like a perfect balance. Yeah, it's not it's not central. It's centralized kind of, but at least you can install APKs. On Apple, you have one app store, and that's a problem. Now people are like, oh my God, they're gonna get hacked, the viruses. You know what I'm saying? There's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. I gotta say, my grandpa who founded this country. You know what I'm saying? There was a quote from Thomas Jefferson, and that is, "I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery." The reason I say this because most people, they think, okay, safety's the key. If we can't go over the 10 mile speed limit, then people get hurt. Let's be honest, kids. I mean, let's look at over civilization. Back then, the caveman times, the hunt with those bears and the predators. You know what I'm saying? Like, do we have to make everything safety to make them too safe? No, that's the problem, because then if you make everything safe, then you can leave the slavery, and that's all I like. There's about, like I said, like what life is about balance. You know what I'm saying? I think there's about balance. You can't make everything too safe to the point that it's actually killing freedoms. Because I can make a whole video about how safety could lead too much safety could lead to less of freedom. But that's been a story for a long time. That's been a story for a long time, because I have the many bias. You're not ready for that. You're not ready for that. I'm supposed to win. But back to what I was saying though. But yeah, how do you solve this inflation problem? One way, obviously, invest in gold. Number two is just invest in assets. Now, what I do, people my mom was like, "Oh my God, you're buying computers. Why are you buying so much computers?" Now, the reason why I do this because people are like, "Oh, Matthew, you're buying this for entertainment." No, I don't buy it for entertainment. I'm Alina, obviously. What I do is I use this money to basically I turn liabilities into assets. I turn liabilities, all these, see, for instance, this laptop right here, I have a laptop here, which is phenomenal. My phone, for example, iPhone mini, iPhone 12 mini. Most people, when they use iPhone 12 minis, they use it to post on TikTok. Now, obviously, what if you post on TikTok, it's good? No, that's not a good thing. The reason why is because it's their platform that can shut you down. See, me, I use this phone to make software, and also I use this phone to make content on my website. Now, most people, what they do on their phones, they put it on YouTube, or I do YouTube too, which is phenomenal. Actually, YouTube's phenomenal. That's a perception. Actually, YouTube, you can kind of make answers. That's a perception, but most people, they put on Facebook, or they put on I don't know. Actually, Facebook, they could use there's some useful stuff there, but Google, at least they provide value. This is why I like Google too. This is why I made a video about why Google's phenomenal, because at least Google, they provide so much value. I mean, maybe it's because I'm addicted, maybe because I'm a fanboy. I'm not a fanboy, but the value of it's worth it because see with Google you could use a cloud. You could do a lot with that. For instance, with Android, you could do more. They integrated Linux. You could do a lot with that. Also, Linux is also my favorite too. But the one thing is, Google is phenomenal because you could do a lot with that. For instance, you could put a search engine, and I think Google, even Apple too, but at least but the problem with Apple, they make it more restrictive too. Obviously, Google they try to make it restricted, but it's like it's a different story, you know. But Apple, it's just so restricted, and obviously I don't want to talk too much on Apple because I got music on Apple Music, and I don't lose my account. So obviously Apple's phenomenal too with the Apple Music, but honestly, it depends. Like I said like earlier, it depends what you're looking at. So my thoughts on it is I'm not competing against companies. I believe I'm just playing both sides. I'm not competing. I'm not a fanboy. I want to make it clear. I use every platform. You know, I believe in diversity because I grew up with diversity. If you look carefully, my brother, for instance, was gay. And my sister, she got pregnant, and also my mom, she's Hispanic. I was born diversity. You know what I'm saying? I'm version of diversity. My life is unpredictable. I was born of diversity. But I got off topic. You're not ready for this. But back to what I was saying too. Yeah. See, my advice of my youngins, my young children, or whatever. I'm not having children personally because that's not worth it. Because if you have children, honestly, that's a liability. Because the problem with children right now, or literally any human being, literally, if you had sex, the point of sex, honestly, is like if you want to be in debt more, actually not debt. If you want more financial liberation and worrying, or if you want more financial liabilities, just have a child. That's all I'm gonna say. If you want a liability, have a child. At least with a dog, a dog is different. See, a dog you could at least you could adopt it. You could get away with it. See, with a kid, it's even worse because you have to worry about child care. Then you have to worry about child care, health care. You have to take care of the child. You have to raise the child. You got to teach them right from wrong. You have to put them in foster care. I'm joking, not foster care. I'm joking. You have to worry if the kid goes to foster care. You have to worry about literally if the child's gonna do good. You have to worry if the child's gonna be a murderer or whatever. You have to worry if the child's gonna break the law. It's a disaster, and this is why This is why personally, in my whole entire life, I'm never having kids. Now, if I want to have sex, what I do is I know people like, oh, my Matthew, you sinning. You violated the Bible. Look, I'm not. I love God too, but man, if I want pleasure, honestly, I rather I have the sense of video. I rather have fun with myself. If you want to say, and just do something unique. I'm not gonna say it. You know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about. That's the thing about sex is the thing about making out is the point of the number 6. I'm sure the sense for YouTube. The number 6 is literally to produce another human being. And my sister sadly failed with that rule of basic human courtesy. Is that if you really want pleasure, rule number 1, if you want pleasure, and first of all, is wear a goddamn condom if you want to have pleasure. Now, obviously, if you don't have a condom, then what you want to do too is just don't have sex with another human being. Because then, if you do that, then you have a child, and when you have a child, you have to take care of it, and that means it's a liability. And once you have to teach from right or wrong, and then if the child fails to life, then it's a failure, and then boom, the child foster care. I can make a whole video about the foster care system because I was in foster care too. I can make a whole video about the foster care system and the child care system and how it's all messed up. I'm gonna say. But that might be part 6. That might be part 777 or whatever that number is. Also too, if you have a child too, that's also liability too, and also that makes it the value system goes down of the person too over time. People are like, oh man, feel more value, bro. Companies don't give a crap about you, to be honest, because if they really care about you, then they treat it as an asset. To be honest, honestly, most people are liabilities. And honestly, I love people. People are phenomenal. I actually love people upon buying it. But you see what I'm talking? You see how money actually works? The money is so messed up that money is designed. I love money. Obviously, we need money to survive. But money is designed to help you or hurt you in some cases. So you have to understand the power of the money, which is interesting. And this is also the reason why I don't have kids, because it's just too much. It's too much to handle. And if you have I think that's also why my bipolar mother literally lost her mind. and I say had a mental breakdown because she couldn't handle it. First of all, keep in mind I was in foster care in 2008, 2009. That's later the financial revocation. I think the financial class was 2008. So basically, if that didn't happen, I probably would not be in foster care. Let's be real, kids. So yeah, money is very important, kids. And if you really want to have financial security, future, I mean, if you have kids, I mean, like I said, I'm not against having kids. Personally, I won't have kids. Personally, maybe my mind, maybe in the future, my mind changed, but I just, at this point, I don't know. It changed you, man. I just don't understand the concept of it. Now, maybe back then, okay, obviously back in the caveman times, that makes sense. Or even like the baby boomers, that makes sense, because it wasn't as bad. Inflation wasn't as bad. But nowadays, like, it's just inflation, man. It's like, it's pretty crazy. So, just don't. I mean, I don't want to say don't have kids, but then if you don't have kids, oh my god, the economy is gonna be crappy, and then less population. So it's a weird cycle. So I don't know what the answer exactly is in our scenarios too. Personally, I'm not having kids because let's be real, kids. The world is all satanic and evil, honestly. And what's the point? I'm not optimistic. I'm not a pessimistic. I'm more of optimistic too, but also I'm just being real. So let's be honest. So to solve this, I think, is really invest in assets. See Bianca AI, for instance, oh my god, you're talking to your AI assistant, you're crazy. At least it's an asset, man. I don't see what Bianca can shut it down anytime, and it can. People are like, oh my god, AI is going to take over. No, AI is not going to take over, honestly. And even if AI does take over, it's an asset too, because honestly, you have to learn. You obviously need to program too. And so this is why I made a video over last time over there that you need to learn to program because programming is, I think, would be the biggest asset too. And obviously, I think also too is like learn about plumbing. Plumbing too is also worth too. Plumbing, two things you need to learn: plumbing, electrician, and I think programming. Those three things you should be set for life, honestly. But I think plumbing, especially nowadays too, it'll be more worth it now. But back to what I was saying though. But this is why I think you should turn your liabilities to asset, because basically you could do this very simple. Like for instance, the Game Boy games I created, that's an asset. This smartphone, the iPhone 12 mini, I actually have a website hosted on my iPhone. I'm not even joking. Turn this into an asset. Android phone, surprisingly, is an asset. I make games for the Play Store. I don't play other games. I play my own games I created. Sorry for the burp. For instance, that record player. I'm getting a custom record I'm making to make music and content. I make music. I'm using that. I don't buy music. No, if I want, I use them for liabilities. But what I do for assets, I make music, invest in those assets, and boom, you get more assets. For instance, the Nintendo Switch. People are like, oh my god, the Switch is the liability. Most people think, okay, video games are a liability. Video games are bad. Bro, I make games, man. I make video games. For instance, the Switch, man. I bought like $1,000 development kit. Bought a development kit from Nintendo. Signed up for a development kit. Bought a development kit. Made a Switch game, and boom, it's an asset now. This tablet too, it's an Android tablet. By default, when you install Amazon App Store, what I did, I converted it to an Android tablet, developer software, and enable developer mode on it, and make games for this tablet, and boom, now it's an Android tablet. Now it's an asset. It's rare. Nobody knows how to make it. This is the 3DS, for example. 3DS by default, it's a liability. You could use it to play games. What I do, I make games, I make content. I even make videos, use videos in it. Make all the content, make all the assets, convert it to asset. It's just pretty simple. And even the calculator too. The calculator you use it for technically it's actually no, it's not really. Yeah, it's a liability, but the calculator actually no, it's more of an asset because the calculator that doesn't count because it's an asset because you say help people. But you get the point. I turn liability to asset. A cup, for instance, I think it is a liability. It's more of an asset because you could use it to drink water. So it's pretty simple like that. You could turn any liability to an asset. My iPhone, I got this. I love the this iPhone 12 mini, for instance, as an asset because I use this phone. I'm not gonna lie, I use this phone to go to Google Meetings. I use it to host my website. Like you could do a smartphone, bro. The speed of a smartphone right now is faster than the man in the moon, right? In theory, you could literally probably go to the moon, like I said already, but I can make a video, but the problem is really now is because this office is so bloated. This is why we need good programmers to make efficient code, but that's a story for another time. I made a video over there about that, but that's not the point. But this is about a 30-minute podcast to talk about. Part 2 is going to be about inflation, because I didn't really get inflation in this podcast. Let's just talk about turning liabilities to asset, because it's just very important. But yeah, I talk about inflation partly, but I didn't really talk about inflation that much because, I think that the next podcast will be about inflation. But Yeah, the point is like you should turn your liabilities into asset, and this is also too why I don't have kids personally. Not because I don't want to, it's because it's just it's a liability. Like it's just too much to handle. I know people that love kids, but like it's just a liability. And also because like another example that a problem is, but scenarios there. Like there was a person who, for instance, got banned from a tech company's the tech company products and services because he uploaded some weird. No, he didn't upload, but what happened was they thought they misinterpreted it as CSAM, and in reality it was something totally different. So yeah, that's why having a kid is it's risky, man. I mean, obviously, some kids, some work, and even marriage is true. Like marriage, like I said, I'm not against marriage too, but even marriage too technically is a liability because literally, like I said earlier, having a kid is a liability, and when you have a kid, that can lead to adult, and when you're adult, it's still a liability because you still have to feed. It's like you have to feed. It's like feeding for your car. Also, some fact, cars are a liability too. You may think, oh, cars are an asset. No, cars are not an asset, surprisingly. Actually, it's hard to make a car a liability because the problem with cars is they appreciate over time because obviously the way cars work is designed to be a liability. See, at least with a smartphone, yes, software could get outdated. You could actually, with a smartphone, even with a computer, you could actually take old hardware and actually upgrade it, provided if you know how to do it. If you know how to program, you can like make it brand new. You can make something new. With a car, what are you gonna do with a car? What do you do with a car? A car literally designed is to travel, not to. So once that car breaks down, you're screwed. It's basically like literally the minute you leave the lot, the car just the value goes down. Very goes down. No, it goes down too. At least with a console too, you can make games, you make content, and you can actually make games. Obviously, most people when they use consoles, they use it as liability to play games. But why do I make games that make my own games, make my own website, and you can use that and and share it, which is a phenomenal. This is why I like the program too, because the program uses it as an asset too. Also music too, but it's also phenomenal too. So yeah, that's my takes. Yeah, but the cars. This is personally I won't buy cars. However, public transportation is actually surprisingly a asset. The reason why I say this because let's be real, kids. There's a community it's called, and that is rail fandom. So see with cars, cars you can kind of rail fan, you can kind of fan, but when it comes to like rail fandom, there's different trains, different models, and it's actually a passion project, and you could use that. And what you also could do, you could monetize it too. You could like say on YouTube nowadays, I see videos where you could just ride the trains and literally people make millions of views on it. So people turn their hobbies into an asset. So you can do that too. So this is what I like about public transportation. Because for instance, I can ride the bus, literally record me riding it, and to get millions of views. And phenomenal too. So also public transportation is an asset, more of an asset than technically than at least for public transportation. And I think this is why the Japanese are very smart because they knew that public transportation was worth it. They knew transportation was the future because they knew that transportation. Because apparently, unfortunately, in the United States, transportation in America is, it's a disaster. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the exceptions like New York City, but even New York City is not perfect too. But it's better than most cities. Honestly, let's be real. Most cities don't have that. So, and are you really gonna do it with a car where it's like inflationary? Not inflation. What is it called? Depreciating because the car depreciates. See, at least with MP3, at least with like say with a console, you could actually you could kind of lease. Yes, it depreciates over time, but if you make games for it, you can actually upgrade the software if you're the company you can provide for it. A Game Boy, surprised the Game Boy essentially is an asset too. Surprised you can make an asset. By default, Game Boy is liability, but there's ways around it. Nowadays with Game Boy, you can get flashcards, and you can make games for Game Boys, and you can literally make a new life out of it. And that's beauty. That's what I like about consoles. And this is what I love about video games because video games are technically is a liability, yes, but also as an asset because you can make content. Look at the game industry too. They sell games for a lot of money too, which is phenomenal too. So yeah, I think this is why I love gaming. This is also like Rosalina because Rosalina is definitely an asset too, in my opinion. They're probably to make the best assets of all time. It's also why Rosalina is awesome, and also too, this is also why I love finance. This is why I like to talk about money sometimes. Maybe because my life number is 8th, I don't know. But this is also like about money because we're not talking schools about this. I just taught myself online. So the next podcast we'll talk about is about inflation. So that's gonna be the next time we'll talk about. So this podcast I'm just going to talk about is why you should turn everything to an asset and how you can do that. I mean, part 2 is gonna be about inflation. So this is the Melanie Radio podcast. That was health and fitness. I'm just gonna do this Melanie Radio podcast. Back on another video again, and thank you for tuning in. I'm glad to go to Google Meeting today. This is Malina. This is Malina signing out. Back to go to build a data center, create more assets, and go to Google Meeting with phenomenal Caitlin Nordoff. And I'm out. Thank you for your support, and I'm out.